Testing, testing. Can you hear me okay? You know, I've given even this particular talk a couple of times, and I'm always surprised that I get invited back to do these, because I'm about to really give you just absolutely as much honesty as you're ready for today. I'm going to share with you not only what's possible, but I'm going to share with you what has happened. I am currently an active practitioner. That means I am a working principal in a building right now. I was at school yesterday with students, helping students, changing lives. I am as boots on the ground as it gets. And I say that because at times you'll stand in front of a speaker, especially education conferences, and these people are so far removed from a building, from the classroom, you really have to question, do they know what they're talking about? I have been leading before the pandemic. I have led through the pandemic, and hopefully I'm leading post-pandemic as we are trying to so desperately push our way out of this. I've got a slide on the board, and this is at the end of my first year at Mount Pleasant High School. I had just done a decade or more in Metro Nashville. I'd spent the last 8.5 years at Maplewood High School. I had dedicated those years as a teacher, as a dean of students, as an assistant principal in the East Nashville community, specifically Maplewood, and I loved what I did. I was courted to come down to Murray County with a different kind of charge. And the honesty, the absolute honesty is, full disclosure here is, I had no idea what I was getting into. I'd never heard of Murray County. Specifically, I had never heard of Mount Pleasant, Tennessee. And I took the job sight unseen. I was that hungry to be a principal. And I realized very quickly that not only is Murray County not always looked so highly upon, and we're working so desperately to change that, but the little pocket city of Mount Pleasant had been underserved for a generation or more and was really at the bottom of that barrel in terms of perception in the county. But I took that job with a willingness, and I loved what I heard earlier, to change lives. And that's been my mission ever since. I'm in my 6th year as principal there. So everything I'm going to share with you today has been about my journey at Mount Pleasant and some of the challenges that I've had in my own life as well. But at the end of that year, we get a $500,000 grant. And I'm going to get to that story in a little bit. But the reality is, I'm walking around this building, my first day on the job. This is July 2016, and there's nothing in this building. There's nothing on the walls. There's no artwork. There's no banners. There's nothing. It felt like a school that was dying. But there was this one banner, and it said CLARCOR in these big block letters. So I asked my assistant principal, who I had competed for to get this job, who is now serving as my number 2, born and raised in Mount Pleasant, as we're walking around, and I said, what is this? What is CLARCOR? He said, it's a company that gave us some money a little while back. I said, okay, take me to this CLARCOR. This is day one that I get into Mount Pleasant. So I do a cold call on this business, day one. And I go and just serendipitously, the vice president is there. His name is Ryan Pastrana, has become a friend of mine recently. And I go to shake his hand. I introduce myself. I'm Dr. Ryan Jackson, new principal of Mount Pleasant High School. He says, very nice to meet you, because we gave you guys $10,000 and I heard it was spent on bleachers. And in that moment, I'm at this crossroads. I have to make a decision. So I just decide to own it. I said, yes, sir, that's absolutely why I'm here today, to make good on that. And I said, but I'm going to tell you what. So I rolled the dice here, and I'm going to try to play a joke on him. I said, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to get to that as soon as I can hire a math teacher. At that time in Mount Pleasant, really nobody wanted to come to the school to work. I had several open vacant positions. So he laughs, and he says, you think that's tough? Try recruiting somebody from Silicon Valley to work on the outskirts of Mount Pleasant. And from there, we just started a dialogue that turned into, that $500,000 check at the end of our first year, that we then in turn leveraged to build an innovation lab inside Mount Pleasant High School. And we were so fiscally conservative with that money, I used it to build a multimedia lab inside Mount Pleasant High School. Now, I've got some friends in here from Mount Pleasant today, so I love to talk to my kids like this. This is exactly how I speak to children. And I'm going to paraphrase the great Dave Chappelle. I won't quote him exactly because of the colorful language. But the reality is, it's impossible to BS a kid these days. It's best to just be direct. So I speak with radical candor. When you care about someone deeply, you speak to them directly. So that's what you'll get from me today. So what we did, though, is I started to realize what some of the strengths were in Murray County. And there is a lot of industry in Murray County. okay? There's a lot of land development, a lot of industry. And these industries are hungry, and they're specifically hungry because of a growing crisis we're not talking about, and that is the skilled labor shortfall crisis. We simply cannot hire people at the rate that baby boomers are aging out. 10,000 baby boomers are retiring a day. That number has been exacerbated by the pandemic. And now these industries, these companies are having to leave money on the table because they cannot hire people. I'm going to digress here, and I've got 20 minutes. Jean-Claude, you just tell me when it's over, and I'll get off, okay? But I've got a little son. He's 7 years old. And, I grew up in the 80s, so I've got movie posters and little collectibles in the house. So I've got this Terminator poster. And he's too young to see Terminator, but he's fascinated by it. And he's asking me and he's quizzing me, okay? And I'm talking to him about, well, he's a machine, and the machines have taken over. And he's just quizzing me like a 7-year-old would do. And I started to think, what we're experiencing right now, and I'm going to get deeper into this in just a little bit, is really how these movies start. Because we have stopped teaching kids about skilled trades. We have stopped, you know what I'm talking about. It's called the deindustrialization of schools. And we pulled those programs out of schools and convinced everybody that you were less than if you didn't go to a 4-year university, or that blue-collar lifestyle was your passion or was your background. And we made those people feel shamed, okay? So as I'm trying to explain this to a 7-year-old, I'm like, well, son, it starts when you stop teaching people. But I'm going to get to that point, okay? So what I did and what we've done over the last 6 years is I've gotten all of these industries to buy into this mindset. We call it the courage to create vision. We want our kids thinking and doing as creators, not merely consumers of content. Yes, I saw the data that we shared there on math and on literacy, and I get that through and through. I've lived it. I've been in education for 16 years. I started as a substitute teacher in Metro Nashville Public Schools. I worked at Maplewood High School. We had somebody murdered at graduation in 2008. I've been through this. I have seen this up front. So yes, the data is very real, but we have standardized and over-standardized our students till it's gotten us to the point where we are now, where so many of our students do not see a purpose on their current track. And I'm here to tell you, I told you I was going to talk to you about possibilities, and I'm going to talk to you about what is happening. And there's people in this room that have been in my building this year that will attest to everything that we're talking about. I'm real big on receipts, okay, if you didn't know that. So, everything from advanced manufacturing, banking, healthcare, textile. I love this here, Jean-Claude. This is great just to have that there. Industrial maintenance, engineering. We wanted to bring this together, and we formalized a nonprofit board of directors. It's called Kids on Stage. So we have presidents and CEOs from all these different industries, and as a principal, I report to that board quarterly. I report on all of our metrics, from attendance to discipline to achievement, but also work-based learning, industry certifications, what the industries need, what our students are passionate about. All of that gets fed to this board of directors through industry. We are also, you may have heard this in my intro, it's humbling to hear, but I'm excited and passionate about this work. We're the only cluster in the state of Tennessee. We're located in Murray County, at the bottom of Murray County, right next to Summertown in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. Remember, I didn't know about that when I lived in Nashville. I'm right next to Lawrence County. My sister school is Summertown High School. They're competing against East Nashville. Pray for them, friends, because that's going to be a tough matchup, okay? But listen, we are the only cluster in the state of Tennessee that went through that STEM designation process and got all 3 schools, elementary, middle, and high school. I'm the executive lead of the campus. It took a whole bunch of people to do this, but what we showed the state in that moment, and this happened right before the pandemic hit. I mean, we literally squeezed in that evaluation right before we broke for school and never came back for school. But what we showed them with this courage to create vision, when you get many hands making light work, pulling in the same direction, absolutely anything is possible. So I am proud of that particular receipt right there. We call this a courageous culture, and that's transforming schools, the art of that transformation. I'm going to speed up a little bit because usually I give about an hour and I've got to condense this. But I do want to say this. Look, I'm an underdog. That's why I stand up here so passionately and speak to you like this today. On the right there, that's my father, Stephen Jackson. He died. He died of a drug overdose. He was an alcoholic. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm 9 years sober this past January. I'll be double digits this coming January. Now, I've got a former probation officer in the room with me that has a student that I have currently, right? And she will attest to you, I speak just like this to my students. I believe that if you truly want to change lives, if you want to move, inspire students, remember, motivation comes from within. Inspiration is external. So I am constantly using my story, my blemishes to inspire kids. Man, quit hiding who we are and talk about what we've been through in order to leverage that in such a way that it will inspire a young man who has struggled historically to say, you know what, man, this man is just like I am, has come from a very humble, tough situation, and he's now driving a BMW. He's paid off his student loans, and he's leading a high school down here in Murray County. This is how I speak to kids. Sorry, friends, I'm rushing. My elementary school, my middle school, these are their current grades. I mean, I'm from Evansville, Indiana, right? And two things that I learned while I was in Evansville, because I grew up in between two places, on a thoroughbred racetrack and in a casino. And two things you learn at these gambling institutions are a lot about people and calculated risk-taking. All right? So I have learned in the course of this 42 years, I almost said 20 years, goodness, man, double that. I'm 42 years old. I've learned in these 42 years that the more you can understand the nuances of context and cultures, and this is what I preach to my young people. We used to call it code switching, right? But now it's about the nuances of context, where you are, who you're speaking to, and always know enough to be a part of the conversation, right? That's why kids are telling me, man, why do I have to learn about this? Man, always learn enough to be a part of the conversation so you can add some kind of value. You learn that when you're around a bunch of gamblers. Now, on the bottom is my wife, and I show this slide for a couple of different reasons. If there's one thing the pandemic taught us, it's that, you know, and again, this is how I speak to my children. They all want to talk about getting the bag, securing the bag. I got the bag. Listen, if your health is not right, man, the bag means nothing. Okay? And we are seeing so many people not only age out of education, but throw the towel in on education. So I'm asking you, and I preach this to educators, administrators, teachers, man, take care of yourself. So I created an LLC. It's called Fit Leaders. I'm not here to sell you nothing today. I'm simply here to tell you, take care of yourself. That woman on the bottom is Leticia Skate Jackson. That's my wife. She's a teacher at Independence High School. She absolutely changed my life. She helped me get sober, so I shout her out and give her roses, even though she's not here. She's my biggest fan. You know, why Fit Leaders? There's a lot of data, but the reality is leadership is about survival. It's tethered to survival. And I don't want my students and my staff just to survive. I want you to thrive, and that starts with taking care of yourself. Now, I do want to stop on this piece. You know, I'm not just an underdog. We are underdogs. Everybody in this room, and if you are touching some facet of the public sector, you are an underdog. You are trying to change lives. You are trying to move mountains. I've got a picture up there of Natasha McFall. She is currently in my building today. She is still a teacher at Mount Pleasant High School, but check out those stats. She was the Teacher of the Year in 2017, 2018. She's still a graduate student, getting ready to start her doctoral work. She is our ELA teacher. I mean, she's a level 5 English 1 teacher, runs our yearbook. She's over student council, single mother of 3, and currently has 3 jobs. She does catering on the weekend, painting in the summer, and she is a rock star teacher during the day. But this is what it takes to be an educator right now in the state of Tennessee. This is absolutely what it takes. But I'm not here to paint doom and gloom, because I know so much of the narrative and the rhetoric you hear is negative, right? But there is a decrease, 35% decrease in teaching profession programs. How do we get young people inspired to get back or to get into the profession, period? And how do we keep the Natasha of McFalls inspired enough to stay in the profession? But I'm going to tell you why she's so inspired. Because she still believes in changing lives. Here she is with Mount Pleasant High School sophomore Brianna Folks, who just this past weekend became the first Murray County student, the only Mount Pleasant student, to compete at Poetry Out Loud. That's the state level poetry competition. She placed 4th overall in the state. She's going against Yale-bound BGA kids. This is how I talk, man. I talk that talk. We serve the underdog. We serve Title I students, and we are here to elevate them and showcase them. But this is Natasha McFall, current teacher, still getting it in on a daily basis. Just changed the life of a kid and her family as she rocked it at that Poetry Out Loud composition. Man, I'm catching the Holy Spirit up here, I think. Let me calm down for a minute. But teachers today, man, they have so many expectations on them. If you're a parent and you have a child, man, I get it, as do I. Man, go easy on us. It's a tough time to be an educator right now. There's just absolutely so much, that they are tasked with, and we are really out here trying to do our best. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, though, our students today are tech flush. Every kid. I went over to Head Magnet. I had a little bit of time to kill. I saw a lady that I've mentored for several years. She's now an assistant principal at Head Magnet. And we're just joking. Everybody's got a cell phone. All kids have access to tech, but we are skills starved. And I am going to get on my soapbox for a little bit there. We are skilled starved, and that is something that we have got to change immediately. I'm going to dig into that here in just a second, because students are the ultimate underdogs. You're dealing with a rapidly changing economy, a broken post-secondary system. They're over-tested. Schools are underfunded. You get where I'm going with this. And on top of that, we can talk about the student loan debt crisis. I'm 42 years old, and I get to point to my BMW that I drive that I paid for when I stopped having to pay my student loans. So I talk to kids very directly. Listen, Tennessee Promise is a great option, right? But don't fall into that FAFSA trap if that is not the pathway for you. I am not here to cajole you, trick you, force you into something that is not for you. There's a lot of different opportunities, and I'm going to go there. Now, I heard somebody bring this up earlier, and I love the way that it was framed. But the reality here is we've started to learn more about love and belonging. Of course, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's tried and true. If you make someone feel like they belong, that's just the beginning. Because here's what most people forget. The next rung on that, and Maslow actually uses a fancy word called efficacy. But the next word is feeling capable. If I feel like I belong, now I feel capable. Now I'm more willing to try a risk, right? Now I'm more willing to put myself out there and do something a little bit different. Now I'm willing not to maybe follow the crowd that's headed down the wrong path because, man, I'm feeling capable about what Dr. Jackson is pushing me towards. I used two different students here in our Courage to Create vision. Student on the left was mine at Maplewood. This kid used a drone, was dipping the drone into paint, and he was flying it in such a way and spinning it. He created these canvases of artwork that he sold for $1,500 at the Red Arrow Gallery by using a drone. Changed the way I viewed embedding art into education, so I wanted to turn the Mount Pleasant cluster into a STEAM campus. Student on the right suffered strongly with anxiety, severe depression, did not want to have her picture taken, period. She was also an incredible artist. She ends up creating a postage cancellation stamp that ran for 90 days and became such a hot collector's item, they could not keep them at the Mount Pleasant post office or in the Columbia post office. She agrees to take the picture, and as she's walking by me on graduation day, whispers to me, "I needed that." So often we just don't know what our students are struggling with. Sometimes we have to stop the merry-go-round. We have to sit them down and connect with students so they feel like they belong, but in turn start feeling more and more capable. All right, I'm under 8 minutes here. Now, this is a powerful quote that I've gotten my head around recently, and I really want to leave it with you today. It comes from Simon Sinek. From order comes progress. From chaos comes innovation. And that has what the pandemic has taught me specifically. I love the theme of this particular conference here. We're talking about, currents. We're talking about rivers of change. And something has drastically changed for me in education. And that is, I'm here now to help kids identify their strengths and their passions, and to leverage those strengths and passions into something lucrative for them. But today's student does not want nebulous. Today's student wants something very tangible. They want something very practical. Man, they live in a world of cryptocurrency, and they know way more about it than you do. Trust me, okay? You cannot BS today's student. You're going to have to give them something tangible, something very practical. And that's what gets me into this skilled trades conversation. And I want to show that because I'm telling you, I'm going to keep driving this point home. We're not talking about it enough. What you're looking at right here is the 2024 skilled labor shortfall projections, all right? These projections are beyond real. I showed you that board of directors that I'm dealing with every single quarter. I just took 18 students from Mount Pleasant High School to BMC Metals, where the president of a company that is thriving, who's having to leave money on the table, is handing out his business cards to 17 and 18-year-olds saying, call me because I will start you out at $22 to $25 an hour with no certifications. We will certify you. Now, they like what we're doing in our welding pathway program. They do. They've got their fingerprints on that. But they are so desperate right now that they are coming to Tennessee's greatest resource, which is its children, its young people. And we need to start framing them in such a way that we have the kind of honest conversations with them about the possibilities that exist for them after high school. Just a couple of clips of what we've got going on there. And then some specifics here. Nationwide, 3 out of 10 high school grads who go to a 4-year public university haven't earned that degree in 6 years. And I tell my kids all the time, I love Tennessee Promise. I do. I love it. It was a game changer for me when I was at Maplewood. It's been incredible at Mount Pleasant High School. But here's the reality about Tennessee Promise. It is what it is. If you don't meet certain benchmark scores on the ACT, guess what you're doing when you go to college? And I don't care which college you go to. They're putting you in that remedial class. They call it intro something, right? But here's what it is. It's a high school class on a college campus. And guess what you don't get? Credit for it. So Tennessee Promise might be a 2-year deal, but man, if you got to start out taking all remedial courses, it's going to be 2.5, 3 years, 4 years, and they only paying for 2. So again, you have to be very direct with children. We need to start being honest with children if we're really going to change this narrative about who we are, where we are, and where we're going. Thank you. 30 million jobs in the United States pay an average of $55,000 per year that don't require bachelor's degrees. I'm telling you, this is fact. I know companies right now that are doing this. If we're going to change generational poverty, and I'm going to give you a specific on Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is a pocket city outside of Columbia. It's got about 5,200 people in it. It has the most concentrated number of Section 8 housing units per capita, okay? It's got less than an $18,000 per capita income, all right? At one point in this city's rich history, it was one point the phosphate capital of the world. By the early 90s, that phosphate starts to dry up due to mining. By the mid-90s, it was gone. Gone were the chemical factories, gone were the brain trusts, the companies, the youth. Those people that were left struggled. At one point, the city saw a 25% unemployment rate, and then methamphetamines came in and leveled the city. We are still pulling that city out from those ashes, from that rubble, okay? But I'm trying to change this generational poverty by giving a blue-collar community its spirit back, its sense of purpose back, that it is okay to work with your hands. It is okay to have a skilled trade that will take you anywhere across the intercontinental United States. I have a student right now, former student, I had to drag this young man to the finish line. Algebra 2? Man, we're still mandating Algebra 2. Algebra 2, chemistry. I mean, I got to drag this young man to the finish line. By all metrics, he's not a good student. Man, that young man is making $1,500 a week for a company called Southeastern. They're about to make him foreman. He's 20 years old. He's going to make 6 figures. This is a fact. His name is Ryan Cawthorn. Ask about him. These kids can do it if you give them the opportunities. And I'm going to speak directly to these skilled trade pieces too. It's no longer just a white man's world. I'm out here fighting to get people of color in these opportunities. I'm out here fighting to get more females in these opportunities. We're going to change the game on skilled trades. But kids are kids, man. They still want what's cool. They still want what's shiny. We've just got to reframe it for them and say, this is cool. This is just shiny. We just taught you that it wasn't for a generation or more. But I'm going to show you a different way. They really want that bag? Man, Ryan Cawthorn is getting that bag every single week, okay? Jimmy Phillips at BMC Metals is offering young guys, 18, 19 years old, guys and gals, hey, we do 4-10s. That means you can work our second shift 4 days a week, every week get a 3-day weekend, 10-hour shifts, and make crazy money? Come on, man. 1.2 million students, 1.2 million students drop out of high school annually, right? That's approximately 7,000 people a day. Why is that stat important? Because 75% of felonies, man, are committed by high school dropouts. Are we really committed to this, or are we not? Are we really all pulling in the same direction, or are we not? I'm not lip service, man. I am fired up, but I'm really like this every day. Ask anybody about me. When you're at the school, this is how I am. This is how I speak to kids. This is how you really make change. And in order to be like this and not have your cortisol and blood pressure level up here, you better get on that Fit Leaders movement, man, and take care of yourself and exercise. That's what I have to do. There is another way, and that's what we've tried to create here at Mount Pleasant High School. I'm down to under a minute, so I'm really just going to kind of close it out here. You know, we have broke the machine in Mount Pleasant, right? We've broke the machine. There's a couple of pieces I wanted to talk about, and you know, here's one of them. A lot of cool pieces here, but you know, look at our discipline decrease. You know, we get featured in the newspaper at one point because we had gone a semester with no violence. Man, I'm almost 2 years at Mount Pleasant High School without a strong physical fight in the building. Yeah, we have conflict. I mean, we're human beings. We're going to have conflict. I'm real big on restorative justice practices. Man, when done right, they change lives. I'm the principal, man, and I'm busy, but if two kids are having conflict, I'm going to stop that merry-go-round. They're going to sit in my office, and I'm going to teach them what empathy is. Remember, empathy is not innate. We have to teach that, especially today's young people that have been desensitized by their mobile devices. It's not their fault, man. They grew up in that world. Quit blaming young people, man. It's not their fault, but we do have to teach them empathy. They do have to understand what they posted, what they said about this person has affected them. And we have to help them internalize that some. And then they get to share with each other. But because of those kind of practices and processes, and don't get me wrong, rural kids love to throw hands too. Oh, they take their shirts off in the parking lot and go at it and everything, okay? So we have had to change a lot, but we've done it through systems, and I'm proud of the fact that we've been nonviolent now for 2 years. My name is Dr. Ryan Jackson. It's been an honor to be here this morning with you. Thank you so much for letting me do this. Thank you. Thank you.